You know how sometimes love stories don't collapse because of betrayal or infidelity, but because of money? Well, this is one of those stories. A story of a man who thought he was doing everything right, and a woman who thought he was robbing her of happiness. Meet Daniel and Sophia. On the outside, they looked like the picture of a stable family. 2 kids, a comfortable house in a small Midwestern city, and a mortgage they had just finished paying off. But behind closed doors, a storm was brewing. Daniel always prided himself on being the responsible one. He handled the bills, the investments, and every detail of their future planning. Sophia? She was the free spirit, a stay-at-home mum who had poured 15 years of her life into raising their children, Ethan, now 15, and Lily, 13. But here's the problem. Sophia had never cared about budgets. She had never really wanted to. Daniel tried to involve her. He'd sit down with spreadsheets, charts, and long explanations about savings accounts. And every time, she'd wave him off. "Danny, you handle it. I'm not interested in numbers." At first, he didn't mind. In fact, he liked being in control. But over the years, that control turned into pressure. The couple had agreed on one rule to keep things fair. Each of them got $800 a month as personal fun money. Daniel usually saved his. He'd buy himself something bigger every few months, like a Kindle or maybe new gear for hiking. Simple, quiet pleasures. Sophia? She loved spending hers immediately. Makeup, new hair treatments, manicures, pedicures, waxing appointments. And when her money ran out, she would turn to Daniel. "Come on, you barely use yours. Just buy me this thing on Amazon. Or, can we get takeout tonight? You never splurge anyway." Daniel started to resent it. He tried explaining, patiently at first, then more firmly, "It's not fair if you run out and then expect me to cover you." That defeats the whole point. But Sophia would just laugh it off, saying he was being dramatic. Then came the big turning point. After years of careful saving, years of saying no to extras, Daniel had finally done it. He had paid off the mortgage. To him, this was the ultimate milestone. They were free, no more debt. Now all that money could finally go into investments and retirement. But the night he made the final payment, Sophia's eyes lit up for a completely different reason. "Good," she said with a smile. "Now we can finally buy a new car." Daniel froze. His jaw tightened. A new car? Now? Their current vehicles, a 2017 SUV and a 2014 sedan, were both fully paid off and running fine. He looked at her and said firmly, "No. That money is going to our investment accounts. We're building toward retirement. We talked about this, remember? Retiring early, traveling the world together. That's the dream," but Sophia's smile vanished. "You're such a tightwad," she snapped. "What's the point of saving so much if we could die tomorrow? What's the point of life if we can't enjoy it?" Daniel felt something snap inside him. For years he had tried to be patient, the calm one, the provider. But now? Now he was angry. "You want a new car?" he shot back. "Fine. Get a job, work for at least a year, then we'll talk about it." The words hung heavy in the air. Sophia's face went red. She called him a cheapskate, a man who cared more about money than his own wife's happiness. And from that night on, the house grew quiet. Not because they had found peace, but because Sophia had stopped talking to him altogether. Daniel took to Reddit, desperate for answers. He told strangers online that he felt like the responsible villain, like he was the only adult in the room, while his wife got to be the carefree one who never worried about anything. But deep down, Daniel wasn't just angry, he was scared. Scared that his marriage was slipping away. Scared that the woman he loved had turned him into the enemy simply for wanting a future together. What he didn't know was that this fight over a car was only the beginning. Because when pride, resentment, and silence mix together in a marriage, things rarely end quietly. Sometimes the real cracks in a relationship don't come from betrayal or lies, but from the clash between living for today and saving for tomorrow. And if 2 people can't agree on which matters more, even love can start to feel like a battlefield. Daniel thought the silence would pass. He thought Sophia just needed a couple of days to cool off, but days turned into weeks. Every night, the same routine played out. Dinner with the kids, chatter about school, about sports, about little things. And then, Silence. No eye contact, no conversation, just the sound of forks on plates and the hum of the refrigerator. Daniel felt like a ghost in his own home. He tried breaking the ice. "How was your day? Did you want to go for a walk?" Even small jokes, hoping to crack a smile. Nothing. Just her eyes fixed on her phone, or worse, that cold, dismissive stare. It wasn't just silence anymore. It was punishment. Sophia's attitude began seeping into the kids too. Lily, their teenage daughter, started giving Daniel short, clipped answers. Ethan seemed to retreat to his room more often, avoiding the tension altogether. One night, Daniel overheard his daughter whispering to Sophia in the kitchen, "Why are you mad at Dad?" Sophia's voice was sharp, almost venomous. "Because he only cares about money, not us." Daniel's chest tightened as the words sliced through him. Not us. That wasn't true. Everything he had done, the saving, the sacrifices, the long nights worrying about bills, was for them. For Sophia, for the kids. But now, in their eyes, he was just the villain. At work, Daniel pretended to be fine. He smiled at colleagues, handled his projects, joked at lunch. But inside, he was unraveling. When he scrolled Reddit at night, reading the advice of strangers, he noticed a pattern. Some people told him to stand firm, that he was right. Others called him controlling, selfish, even cruel for telling his wife to get a job. And maybe they were right. Maybe he had gone too far. But then he would think about Sophia's words, "We can die tomorrow." And his blood would boil again. How could she throw away years of planning for a shiny new car? How could she not see that their future was dangling by a thread? The more he thought about it, the more isolated he felt. Then came the breaking point. It was a Saturday afternoon. Daniel had been outside trimming the hedges, sweat dripping down his back, when he came inside to grab a drink of water. There was Sophia sitting at the kitchen counter with her laptop open. And on the screen, a brand new car. A sleek, shiny 2024 SUV, bright red, fully loaded. Daniel's pulse quickened. "Sophia," he said, voice tight. "What is this?" She didn't even flinch. "I'm just looking." "Looking? This isn't just looking. This is shopping." She finally glanced up, her eyes icy. "Yes, Daniel, shopping, because I'm tired of driving around in that old piece of junk. That junk is fully paid off and runs perfectly fine," Daniel shot back. "We have no debt, Sophia. Do you know how rare that is? Do you know how hard I worked for that?" Sophia slammed the laptop shut. "Do you know how hard I worked for this family? 15 years, Daniel, 15 years at home, raising your kids, making sure this house runs, while you get to feel like the hero because you pay the bills." Daniel froze. The bitterness in her voice was something he hadn't heard before. "So now what? You think because you bring in the paycheck you get to control my life?" The words stung, because maybe, just maybe, there was some truth to them. That night, they slept back to back, neither one daring to move. The silence was louder than any argument. Daniel lay awake, staring at the ceiling, his mind racing. He thought about the sacrifices, the years of saying no so that someday they could both say yes. He thought about Sophia's laughter back when they were young, when the dream of traveling the world had kept them both hopeful. And he wondered, had she stopped dreaming with him? The next morning, the Cold War between them got worse. Sophia cooked breakfast for the kids, but not for him. She packed lunches, cleaned the kitchen, all while moving around Daniel like he didn't exist. Finally, he snapped. "This is insane, Sophia. We can't keep living like this." She turned, spatula in hand, her face unreadable. "Then buy the car." Daniel felt his stomach drop. It wasn't about the car anymore. It was about control, about power. And in that moment, he realized something terrifying. This fight wasn't just about money. It was about whether they even believed in the same future anymore. And if they didn't, what kind of marriage did they even have left? The tension continued to rise, every day worse than the last. Their children walked on eggshells, afraid to spark another explosion. Daniel buried himself in work, just to avoid coming home. But deep down, he knew he couldn't run from it forever. Because one way or another, a breaking point was coming. And when it came, it wouldn't just be about a car. It would be about everything. Weeks passed. The silence had grown into something poisonous. Daniel no longer felt like a husband. He felt like a stranger renting a room in his own home. Sophia barely spoke to him except for clipped, cold remarks. The kids avoided the dining table altogether, preferring to eat in their rooms. Every corner of the house buzzed with tension, and Daniel was exhausted. He couldn't take the quiet stares, the muttered insults under her breath, the way she rolled her eyes whenever he entered the room. Finally, one Friday evening, the storm broke. It started small. Daniel came home from work and noticed takeout bags on the counter, pizza, wings, sodas. The kids were already eating. Sophia sat with them, laughing, scrolling through her phone. And Daniel froze, because they had agreed, no takeout unless it came out of their personal spending budgets. And Daniel hadn't ordered it. "Who paid for this?" he asked quietly. Sophia didn't even look up. "I did." "With what money?" She shrugged, her eyes glued to her phone. "Yours." The room went silent. Daniel's chest tightened. "Excuse me?" She finally looked at him, her tone sharp and mocking. "Relax, Danny. You're such a control freak. I just used the card. It's not like you're broke." Daniel's fists clenched at his sides. "That's not the point, Sophia." Sophia cut him off with a laugh. "Oh my God, do you hear yourself? Always with the rules, the budgets, the stupid agreements. You're suffocating this family with your obsession over money." Daniel felt the heat rise in his face. "Suffocating? Sophia, I'm the only reason we have this house, these cars, this life. While you—" He stopped himself, but it was too late. The word hung in the air. "While you— what?" Sophia's eyes narrowed. "Go on. Say it." "While I what?" Daniel's throat burned. "While you sit here and spend every dime without caring about tomorrow." Her chair screeched back as she stood, her voice shaking with fury. "I gave up tomorrow for you. 15 years of my life, gone. I could have had a career, a life outside these walls. But I stayed home and raised your children. And now you think I'm lazy?" The kids froze, wide-eyed, their forks mid-air. Daniel's heart dropped. He hadn't meant for them to hear this. But Sophia wasn't done. "You think you're the hero? You're not. You're a tyrant with a calculator. You don't want a wife. You want an accountant. Someone who worships your spreadsheets." Daniel's voice cracked as he shouted back, "And you don't want a husband. You want a credit card." The words exploded like a grenade. Ethan shoved his chair back, storming upstairs. Lily burst into tears and ran after him, and just like that, they were alone. The silence afterward was worse than the shouting. Sophia's chest heaved as she glared at him, her hands shaking. "You'll regret this," she whispered. "Because when the kids see you for what you really are, they won't choose you." Daniel's heart shattered, not because of her words, but because a part of him feared she was right. That night, Daniel lay awake on the couch. He stared at the ceiling, replaying everything over and over. The laughter they once shared, the promises they made, the life they dreamed of. And now all of it crumbling over a car. But in truth, it wasn't about the car, it never was. It was about respect, about choices, about power. And Daniel knew something had to change. Because if it didn't, this marriage wouldn't survive. What he didn't know was that the next week would bring a decision so brutal, so final, that it would either break them completely or force them to face what they had been avoiding for years. The house had become a battlefield. Every step, every glance, every word, loaded with tension. Daniel avoided the kitchen when Sophia was there. Sophia avoided the living room when Daniel sat down. The kids floated between them like shadows, never knowing where to stand. It couldn't go on like this. And Daniel knew it. One evening, after another long day of silence, Daniel walked into the bedroom. Sophia was already there, brushing her hair in front of the mirror. He stood in the doorway, hands trembling. "We need to talk," he said softly. She didn't look at him. "There's nothing to talk about." "Yes, there is," he insisted. "We can't keep tearing each other apart." "Not in front of the kids. Not like this." She turned. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, but her voice was sharp. "Then buy the car. End of story. Daniel shook his head. It's not about the car, Sophia. It's about us. About respect. About the life we promised each other. Her face crumpled. You promised me a life worth living, Daniel. Not just numbers on a screen, not just waiting for a retirement that might never come. And you promised me we'd do it together, Daniel shot back. That we'd build something solid. That we'd give the kids stability. You said you wanted that too. For the first time in weeks, her eyes softened. The anger melted, replaced by exhaustion. I'm tired, she whispered. Tired of always feeling like the fun police is watching me. Tired of feeling like a child asking for permission to live. Daniel's chest tightened, and suddenly all the fury drained from him too, because beneath the shouting, beneath the silence, was pain. Her pain, his pain. He stepped closer. I don't want to control you, Sophia. I just want us to be safe. I want to know that no matter what happens, we'll be okay, that our kids will be okay. She blinked back tears. And I want to feel alive now, Daniel, not 20 years from now. For a moment, they just stood there, two broken hearts trying to remember how to beat in rhythm again. That night, they didn't solve everything, but they did something they hadn't done in weeks. They talked. Not about numbers, not about cars, but about fears, dreams, and regrets. Daniel admitted that he was scared of losing everything they had built, scared of being old and broke, scared of failing the people he loved most. Sophia admitted she felt invisible, like her years at home meant nothing, like she was just another expense on his balance sheet. And for the first time, they both listened. The next morning, Daniel made a decision. He walked into the kitchen where Sophia was pouring coffee. His voice was calm, steady. I've been thinking, maybe we don't need a brand new car, but maybe we can start saving for a newer one, a compromise, something we both agree on. Sophia's lips parted in surprise. Her eyes searched his face, waiting for sarcasm, but there was none. Slowly she nodded. Okay. A compromise. It wasn't a victory for either of them, but it was peace, and that was enough. In the weeks that followed, the silence faded. The laughter slowly returned, not as strong as before, but enough to remind them of what they still had. Daniel knew things wouldn't be perfect. There would be more arguments, more battles between saving and spending. But for the first time in months, he felt hope. Hope that they could rebuild. Hope that love could survive, even when dreams collided. And as he watched Sophia laughing with the kids that night, Daniel realized something important. He didn't have to be the responsible villain, and she didn't have to be the carefree dreamer. They just had to be partners again, two imperfect people, choosing each other over and over. Sometimes the hardest battles in marriage aren't fought against the world, but against each other. And the real victory isn't about who wins the fight. It's about whether the love is strong enough to survive it. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends.